Let's begin with the call to order and pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is to approve today's agenda. We do. All right. Roll call, Neil Score, acting chair.
Bruce Olson. Dennis Deezer.
I didn't mean to say
Nelson.
Angie Hoffman.
Jill Marine.
Dave Plott.
All present and accounted for. Now, I'd ask for a motion to approve today's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Third item is to discuss the fourth quarter learning model. Dr. Funk.
Good evening, everybody. So tonight we are here because we have a potential opportunity to start bringing some students back fourth quarter, which is exciting for the district to be talking about. You know, about a year ago this month, we closed school down. So it's been almost a full year since our secondary students have been in school in person. And as a father of a ninth grade student at Alberley High School, I want nothing more than to have my daughter back in a full-time environment. So it's exciting we get to talk through this tonight, both as a superintendent and as a father. Go ahead, Ashley. Second thought, though, is, folks, we're still in a pandemic. People are excited. The weather's getting nicer outside, and it's sunny out. But I can tell you, our county numbers are looking much better from this week compared to last week. But the 4 weeks prior to that, we were the second or highest county in the state of Minnesota as far as COVID count on a 2-week average. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. But we have to remember that we still have this virus is still active out there. And, you know, I think a couple of weeks ago, the governor of Minnesota got a lot of people excited when he talked about wanting to bring our secondary students back. Well, that's great. And a lot of districts are looking forward to doing that. But what people did not talk about is there are certain rules that we have to follow while bringing those students back. And what I'm hoping to do tonight is really provide the board a little bit of background on our current situation, the impact of the Department of Education's guidance on our operations, and a proposal for fourth quarter that will allow us to better meet the needs of our students while at the same time provide us the flexibility to shift back if our numbers go the wrong direction. So go ahead, Ashley. So as a school district, and we've had these for a number of years, there are 3 things that we try to look at when making recommendations or decisions for the school board. And that is, we're operating in a safe, healthy, welcoming environment. We want safe schools, we want them healthy, and we want to be welcoming. We want to provide as much opportunities and increase achievement for our students as we can, and we want to operate in an effective and efficient manner. So those are 3 things that we look at as an administration when we're making decisions for the district on what's best for our students and our school community. So our current situation is interesting. We're shifting from a hybrid mindset, I will call it, where we've been operating successfully in a hybrid environment at the secondary level, to one where we're going to be more focused on an in-person environment. So it's a change in what our teachers are going to be doing. Right now, they're at the secondary level. They have a number of students they meet with in person every day, and then a number of students they meet with virtually every day. And some teachers, 35 to 40 of them, actually have students who never come to school, and they teach them as well on a virtual basis, maybe during a class period. So we are unique as a district because we offer this distance learning academy that not all districts do, and with that there are some strings attached to it that impact us as a school district. As I stated, Governor Walz has provided guidance to our district to consider more in-person instruction, or district statewide, dependent upon their local situation. So, two factors that are real important to us. One, is it going to be safe for our staff? And two, is it going to be safe for our students? And I can tell you that our staff have had the opportunity, if they've wanted a COVID vaccine shot, everybody who wants one, who's medically capable of receiving one, has been provided the opportunity. And we expect our teachers and paraprofessionals who want those shots will have, the vast majority of them will have both shots by March 10th. So we're in a very good situation there. So the teachers are in a great situation, and the support staff. We are not allowed to vaccinate students yet. The federal government is testing some vaccinations. We will not probably be able to see vaccination of students, and who, even if they, I mean, students will be voluntary, of course, just like adults are at this point, but probably till this summer at the very earliest. So internally, our adult population, those who want it, are protected. Go ahead and click on the current numbers there, Ashley. One of the things we talked about last board meeting was how our student population, how is that doing in regard to the COVID outbreak? Scroll to your right, there you go. So we last met, keep on going. We last met in February, middle of February, and you can see there for a number of days, we were at 0, 0, 0, 0, which was a really good sign for our schools. Just to help with the color coding here, green is high school age students. Red would be elementary students, and yellow is a middle school student. So as you can see, we have had some cases in the past week with high school students in particular, and again, one middle school, or two elementaries and two middle school students. And that, folks, is our biggest fear moving forward, is if our student population starts testing positive, every positive student that we see could potentially impact 30 plus students as far as quarantining them. And that would be disruptive to the education environment. So that is a concern. I'd like to see more zeros here as we move forward, but that's where we're at there. Scroll down, Ashley, if you can, and come back to the left. So here is our county numbers, and this is the good news story that I want to share with you. You can see that back in December we were at 70-something. On January 8th, when we came back to school, we were at 113. Then we went up, and then we came down, we came down, we came down. We're at 32 right now. I'm anticipating we will be in the low to mid-20s when the new numbers come out this week. So that has been a positive for the district, that the county-wide numbers and the spread within the county is coming down. Our positivity rate continues to drop as well. I forgot to look before the meeting, but I think it's about 5.6% for Freeborn County. So, we talked about the county stepping up and the community to help out our school system so we could get our kids back. This is definitely looking positive for our district. Okay, you can go back to the slides. So here's what we are proposing moving forward, and then I'm going to have Kathy Niebor come up, our district Executive Director of Administrative Services and our district COVID coordinator, and she'll talk through some of the MDE rules and regulations and why we have to do what we do. So we're proposing the shift to begin on Monday, March 22nd. This is the start of fourth quarter. We'll be moving from a hybrid focus to an in-person focus. Friday, March 12th, a week from this Friday, will be a secondary planning day. So secondary will have a day to begin to plan for basically in-person learning. School will be 4 days in person for the secondary. Elementary transition. There's been some talk. Okay, the elementary start time has no change. Neither does the high school start time or the secondary. Start times remain the same. Elementary will be 7:50. And they will get out at 2:30 instead of 2:50. Middle school will start at 9:15, and they will go to 3:55. High school, 9:15 to 3:45. There's been some people asking, why do we have the high school and middle school going later? Because we need enough time for the buses to turn around, drop off the elementary students, and come pick up the secondary students. If we don't provide them that much time, then it does not work out. We will offer daycare at each elementary from 2:30 to 4 p.m. with transportation provided if necessary. Fridays will revert to a virtual day district-wide with Tier 1 daycare still being provided at Hawthorne Elementary. Kathy?
So some of the constraints with the back-to-school plan are two limits in particular. One is prep time for teachers who operate both in-person and distance learning, and the other is the transportation spacing requirement from the Department of Ed. And so this is the teacher prep time guidance. This actually came out in November 13th, 2020. It had to be implemented no later than November 30th. And we've been very successful in doing this. And this is for our teachers who we are asking to teach in two models. And so when we have a teacher who is doing hybrid and also distance learning, or on-site and distance learning, or any combination of that, we are obligated under the executive order to provide them an additional 30 minutes of instructional time per day. It's a quite lengthy guidance, but there's some pieces in there that we're allowed to do. And so for us, we do that on Fridays. You don't have to do it every day. You can group it. And that is in the guidance from the Department of Ed. So we have been doing this on Fridays for our secondary teachers for the most part. We do have a few elementary EL, a few out there doing as well, but the vast majority of these are our high school teachers. So that's the first piece. The second piece is the transportation guidance, and the guidance is to arrange seating to maintain a 6 feet of distance between the driver and all riders. So this is what we've tried to do since the beginning of the year. We've become much more successful at it, and that is to keep that driver 6 feet from anyone on the big buses. It's very easy to do. Our smaller buses, it's a little more challenging, but for the most part, we've been able to do that. So that keeps our bus drivers safe. We don't have the plexiglass and other pieces there due to some of other rules, and so that is the first piece. And then to systematically review and evaluate school transportation capacity with the goal of creating as much space as possible, recognizing that it's not always feasible to have 6 feet of social distancing. So the first thing is, or one of the things we do is consider reducing capacity, and we've done that with the tiered busing. So reducing capacity by saying last year and all years prior, elementary and high school and middle school kids were all mixed. By having the tiered busing, all those secondary kids are not on that elementary bus, and so we've reduced capacity there. And adding routes or more physical space between the riders. We all know finding bus drivers is a challenge. We've been very fortunate working with Albert Lee Bus in getting bus drivers, but so part of having routes look like they do in Albert Lee has allowed us to help Albert Lee Bus maintain bus drivers. One-tier busing is really not in compliance with the guidance or the spirit of it. We don't have drivers or the number of buses necessary to maintain appropriate distancing in a one-tier system. When we go full days, you also will lose your paraeducators as bus monitors because they will be working their full shift instead of right now they work short shifts at the secondary. They also will be, some of them, working childcare on Fridays and childcare in the elementary after school. So we really lose that bus monitor to watch to make sure kids are masked, to make sure they're not eating, to make sure that they're away from the bus driver. So all of those things that we've really had, the bus company I know has greatly appreciated, are not going to be there as we do this. So I don't know if we have one more. No. So the additional prep time we do on Fridays. We're mandated under the executive order to do that. We also, as you know, clean the buildings. Right now, we let the teachers leave at the end of their virtual instruction on Fridays, so we can continue to do that cleaning. Some of the touch cleaning, especially in the elementary buildings, occurs on Fridays. And then there's the physical distancing transportation requirements that really make it nearly impossible to be in that one-tier busing environment. The other piece is, and our nurses did a great job, I think, last time talking to you about how do you contact trace on a bus. And the guidance is, if the ride is 15 minutes or longer, we really look at students who are obviously sitting in the same seat, if you have to have two in a seat, those who sit right across, those who are 2 rows behind and 2 rows in front. So there's that tracing. If the bus ride is longer than 30 minutes, all people would be considered close contact, even if we were keeping 6 feet apart. So we still have that piece, which we haven't had to, well, we've had smaller numbers on buses, so that also will impact the more children you put on the bus, the potential for more students having to quarantine due to a bus going down with a positive. So lots of guidance, lots of changes. Anybody eating on a bus can cause some really a bus-wide quarantine as well, and we won't have paraeducators on the bus to monitor that, making sure they're sitting, and making sure they don't get up and move around. That's another requirement, is they can't get up and move around on the bus. So.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yep.
So, rationale for the recommendation that we're making to you. One, it provides maximum face time for our secondary students. We all want our kids to be back in front of teachers as much as possible. All staff members who want shots and medically qualify are receiving them, so we feel comfortable, much more comfortable now that we're actually able to vaccinate folks with our staff. It provides us flexibility to shift out of a full person environment if necessary if the numbers spike. If we were to come and say, okay, we're starting school like we did last year at 7:55 or 8:05, and then suddenly the numbers spike at our secondary level, it would take the district a hard time to suddenly shut down. We'd probably have to go distance learning at our secondary level rather than come back in any sort of hybrid. This provides us the flexibility that if we have an outbreak at Albert Lee High School or at Southwest Middle School, we can shift to a hybrid environment and continue to operate moving forward without messing with the rest of the district. It complies with the limitations imposed by the Department of Education. Interesting thing is, a lot of people are upset about the 3:45, 3:50 release time we're talking about here. So I pulled the big 9 last night. Mankato, Red Wing, and Winona currently release between 3:30 and 3:50. Rochester is going to be shifting to a similar model next year, And I know Northfield is also talking about it, and they're doing it for different reasons than pandemic. But when people say to me, well, what about sports? A third of our conference is already doing it. So I think a lot of the metro school districts are moving in that direction, and that's more for sleep cycles of older kids, which isn't the reason we're requesting this at this point. And it really, at the end of the day, it's what we believe is best for kids with the limitations imposed on us operating in this environment. So that's kind of the proposal that is the proposal that the administration is bringing forward. So questions of the board?
Right. Well, I have one question. To what extent has staff been involved in this recommendation?
We meet weekly at the district level with the union leadership. We also meet 4 days a week with the nurses to gather their input on it. I believe Chris and Mark are back there. They met with their building leadership teams as we talked about different ways to roll this thing out. And where they got into more of the input was more of what the schedule might look like, and are we looking at 48 minutes a day versus what we're currently doing?
Other questions?
Quarantine, if one student in the class comes up positive, is the whole class quarantined?
No. Students within 6 feet of the student for more than 15 minutes. So in the elementary, typically it's the whole class because they're moving around all day long and they're not sitting. But at the high school level, they will come in, there's a seating chart, and they'll typically stay within that seating area for that 15-minute period of time.
Dennis?
My biggest fear, I've been both in the high school classrooms and in the middle school classrooms, the spacing there. What happens, you're going to have kids that are probably going to be closer than 6 feet, but that's still within the state guidelines. We're doing that in the elementary schools, which has been working out good. But that close proximity, and then say it happens because of passing in the hallways or things, how do we deal with that kind of issue?
So a couple thoughts on that. So the reason we are able to start looking at this is they have gone from 6 feet down to 3 feet as far as within the building, within the classrooms, 3 feet separation. We still have to contact trace to 6 feet. So that's why we can bring kids back. As far as the hallways, going back to the guidance, it's got to be 15 minutes. So our passing time is 5 minutes. So you have to be within 6 feet of somebody for 15 minutes. You're not gonna have that in the hallway. Jill, I think, did I see your hand up?
Yes, so as far as the busing requirements, it sounds like the driver needs to be separated by 6 feet from the rest of the students, but then it's pretty much up to the districts as far as how they want to manage the rest of it.
Kathy?
So, correct, it is, to look at the space between riders, create as much space as possible, recognizing that it is not always feasible to have 6 feet of social distancing. So, again, that's the recommendation, but they recognize that that may not be possible, so.
Thank you. And
yeah.
then,
I'm
and
sorry.
then I had a couple questions about the daycare. So it sounds like each location, each elementary will have daycare offered 2:30 to 4, and that will be offered to any families who would be in need of that.
Correct.
And do we know the cost to that, or are there any ways that we can help families with this extra COVID-related cost?
There will be no cost to it. Again, how we are covering it is with paraprofessionals who we will shift, who will not necessarily all have duties on Fridays anymore. So that's how we will do it. So there will be no cost to the family. The other thing I do want to make folks aware is, Dennis, I think you have space at the YMCA for after-school programming as well, if parents want to do that.
And we'd have financial assistance, so if they needed it, we would provide it for them at no cost.
So
Thank you.
for these 9 weeks, there would be no cost. That's correct.
Okay, and then transportation, by that you mean busing home afterwards?
Yes.
if needed?
Yep. So we haven't worked out all the specifics on that, but yes, they will be transported home if needed, or some say that they're walking home, but yes, we will provide the opportunities.
All right, and then I've also heard concerns from secondary parents whose students need to walk up to the 2-mile limit, because that is currently the limit for our high school students as far as busing. Are there any provisions as far as that? You know, normally a parent would maybe drop off all of their children, go to work, and so now their children need to get there at 9:15, which is an off time for a lot of families. So are there any provisions as far as that we could consider?
That would be a decision for the board, but it's been 2 miles for many, many years. So, yeah, I have not. This is the first time I've heard that, Jill, and we've been operating in this environment all year. So that's something new to me, but it's something you could explore.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Aaron, thank you.
No, if we were in a 1-tier system, which if we were suddenly, since we have 2 tiers, it's very easy for us to shift into hybrid, because we're not impacting what's happening in the elementary. If we were in a 1-tier system, it would be much more of a challenge because of the transportation logistics. So what I'm saying is, the proposal we have allows us to switch to hybrid much simpler. We could say, for example, we have an outbreak, and instead of being in school 4 days a week, we would revert to a Monday, Wednesday, A-B type schedule, and we could just go with it. We don't have to worry about shifting back from an 8 o'clock start to a 9:15 start, along those lines. That's what I'm talking about. Yep.
One of the things I've been hearing a lot is there's a lot of families that are looking at vacations over that spring break, and I don't know to what extent we'll have teachers doing that as well. It could become a potential problem point if all of a sudden we have all these families outstate and going places and then they come back. What would our protocol be for making a decision at that point? Because then when they come back from spring break, it would be that Monday. If the numbers didn't look good, if things didn't look good, how quickly could we pull the trigger and draw it back to a format that we are now? I'm really concerned that all of a sudden we open it up and bam, we're back into back and forth.
We could probably, we have to give our staff a little bit of time to prepare. If we're going to switch learning models, they can't just on a dime suddenly, okay, now we're teaching hybrid to this group of kids. So it would take a day or two. We couldn't just do it. And again, we're watching these numbers daily. And this provides us the agility to adjust the district based on the parameters that we're operating under within the county. And I will tell you, that is a concern that the nurses have brought up is, okay, what about after spring break? Should we wait and come back the 29th instead of the 22nd? That has been a discussion we've had at length with the nurses and with the administrators as well. And the argument is it's the start of fourth quarter. Let's just start fourth quarter on the 22nd and move forward.
All right. One thing I've heard a lot from people since our last meeting is the point about the schedules and the busing, and so many people, I'd say the bulk of the contacts I've had, people have said they want in-person and they want a normal schedule, and I'm sympathetic to that. I've been trying to figure out, and I've been talking to Mike already, is it possible, is it legal to do busing as we've done it in the past, or do we need to do the two-tiered? And, you've done a good job of explaining all the reasoning of why you want to keep it the way it is. And I just want to clarify, if the board is interested, it is legal that we could look at busing as normally? And also, if we don't do that right now, what is the pathway that you see to getting to that at some point?
It would be against the strongest recommendation of your superintendent if you want to do that, but you can try to do that as a board. What you might then run into is some compliance issues with the Department of Education. It's a great question, and I feel the pressure in the community for wanting to do this. In a lot of ways, we're threading the needle with what's going on here, and you are all living it as board members right now. We have an element in our community that I want my kids in school 5 days a week. Damn the torpedoes, let's go. And we need to be back. We have another element in our community that says this is not safe for our kids to bring them back full in this environment. They're not vaccinated yet. What are you thinking? And then, and then we've got some people in between. So what we're proposing here is a plan to try to provide as much in-person opportunity as we can, and yet provide us the ability to adjust out of it if we need to, if the situation on the ground gets worse. So it's tough, and I feel for you as board members. I've seen a lot of the communications that you've received regarding this issue, and but we've been very successful operating as a district. I mean, some districts aren't even in person full at the secondary level once yet this year. And ours hasn't been the perfect situation, but we've been able to educate our students. And I think that this is an example of us trying to find that middle ground to meet our community's needs, and yet still provide us the ability to adjust if we need to.
Kim.
Yeah, thank you. So it has been definitely we've heard some feedback, and I guess what I try to look at is, what is it that is our foundational mission as the board, and health and safety and educational achievement are what weigh heavy on me, and I feel like the infrastructure has been put in place, and the system has been put in place. So I believe as a board member, it's my responsibility to get those kids back in the classroom, and I would just challenge people to say, do we want students back because of the increased achievements that we're looking for? That tells me that the later, and I get the scheduling, I get the busing, but this has been a weird ride for everybody. As I have coworkers who are leaving, they take their lunch break late to go pick up their students now. I mean, I think we as a community have pivoted and for the most part have been able to call to action for those changes. And I think really what for me, what this means is that our goal is to get those students back in the classroom, 48 minutes instruction in a class, close to what they were before they had to leave permanently or during the beginning. The other part is I've done a lot of research as it relates to that age group and when their brain really starts getting going. And actually there is a movement that happens that a lot of schools are looking at having later starting points anyway. So I look at this as an opportunity for our district to maybe use it as a pilot to look at, do we start our day later and will that set up students? I'm not saying it will, I'm just saying that research has shown that a later start in the morning has helped high schoolers and junior high students maybe perform better. So I'm really happy that our community is so invested in what we're doing, but I also know that we as board members are charged with a couple pretty important missions, and that's to keep health and safety at the forefront. And the tier 2 is doing that. And yeah, it's hard, and I feel for those families, and I feel for the community that we have things different. But I think this is a great recommendation, and the fact that we can pivot as we see the cases, I think is very smart. And that for me this is a really solid plan.
Dennis?
Do we have an idea of where the high school students are at on it, for or against, or would it be fair to ask them? Thank you.
Yep, come on up.
Are you willing to speak for the student body, Aaron?
Anything different. So the feedback I received, I'll be completely honest, I personally want to go back in person. That's what I want, regardless of what the board decides. I will be doing whatever the in-person model is, but I can't sit here and say that the feedback I've received from students is even remotely positive towards going back. It's kind of difficult to gauge why that is. I think for the most part, what a lot of them have told me is that this distance or hybrid model is a lot easier than in person, especially the seniors. They're okay ending out their senior year doing that, and it's a bad excuse, but it's the truth. It is easier for them, and that's the feedback that I've received, unfortunately. But yeah, it's tough because, like I said, I would like to go back. I think the schedule, I know it's not changeable because of the busing. I understand that, but that's a big part of it too. A lot of students are worried about having to cut back their hours because they are making more money now. I know I was happy to hear about the sports schedule because I was going to ask about that. So there's a couple of concerns from students about the later start or later end time. But yeah, I would say that very, very large majority of students do not want to go full in person, especially for the long amount of time, which it pains me to say that because I really do. So that's the feedback that I received. I don't know if Esther has anything different.
Dale?
I would agree with the majority of what Aaron said. I think that there are some people that think that the hybrid model is easier, but there's also students that are concerned about going back and not having like the social distancing and just like the change that from hybrid to fully in person. But yeah, it's hard to really like make this decision or like think about it because there's so much to consider. But
Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I'm sure it's not any secret that I wanted to see the kids back as soon as possible, but always doing it in a safe manner because it does affect a lot of people. I mean, we're talking teachers, staff, and other students. I think the plan that Dr. Funk just presented is a solid plan. I like the flexibility if we have to make a change back out, and I'm hoping that by working our way into getting the kids back as many hours as we can in a day, that by next fall the numbers look good and we're ready to go back like we were before on a similar time schedule to what we have historically for our kids. The achievement numbers, as we've seen, are definitely hurt by what COVID has presented, but I do feel like the administration's done a nice job of getting us through the best that we can at this point, and by getting the kids back again more time in person in classroom, I do believe is a good plan, and again, one that if we need to change, we can. Thank you.
Bruce?
If the board decides to go to a 4-day week, my feeling on busing, we have to stay with a 2-tier busing. A bus is a confined space, and a poorly ventilated confined space at that, where a class, and you don't want to overload a confined space that's poorly ventilated. Also, the classroom is much bigger, much larger to handle the students, and it's a well-ventilated space.
Yeah, Bruce, you took the words out of my mouth on that one. The mandates or the requirements from the Department of Education do stipulate, within reason, you can alter the 6-foot social distancing rule. But if we had just one route, one tier, and we packed those students on the buses the way they normally are, they'd be 6 inches apart. It would not fall within the definition of reasonable. So I don't think that's an option. We need the 2-tiered system. And other than that, I'm fairly convinced, at least. Again, there are no good solutions to the situation we find ourselves in with the pandemic. And Dr. Funk's opening comments reminded us that we are still in a pandemic. And it would be great to go back 5 full days as, back to what used to be called normal. That's not going to happen because it would not be possible to satisfy the protocol that has been established by the Department of Education and the state for the reasons that have been mentioned, prep time for teachers and various other requirements that are in place that we cannot ignore. So I think the 4-day plan is about the best we can do. Any other comments?
Jill
Yeah,
has
Mike.
Jill has a comment.
I have a question. I think I'll reserve my comments for after motion is made, but I know there are some rumors circulating in the community right now that we are already anticipating these staggered start times for fall, or that's our end goal. Could you address those rumors, please?
Yeah, there has been not one administrative discussion on staggered start times for fall. I think the rumors are coming from the fact that Mankato just went to it, Rochester's going to it, Austin has been discussing it, and we're in a 2-tier system right now. So we have taken 0 time to actually we've been focusing on how are we going to get through this school year at this point in time, and we will review how the school year went later this summer, but there has been no discussion on this within our administration at the district.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, I note that this item is marked as an action item, but unless the board wishes to contradict the recommendation that the decision-making team has put in place, I don't see any need for a motion. We have given the management decision-making team the authority to make alterations in the schedule, and unless we have some deviation from this recommendation in mind, I see no point in a motion. Jill?
I think that would be a departure from the board's normal operation, and so I would prefer a vote at this level of decision-making for the district. Any,
Well, I think that we would probably first, in order to keep this tidy, have to have included in a motion an exemption to the decision that we made last August. And then I don't, if we are in agreement, if unless someone is not in agreement with this recommendation, I don't know why we need to act on it. Dennis?
One of the things that keeps running through my mind is by changing again, if something goes south, then we're gonna move the kids back again. One of the things in the back of my mind I keep thinking about is, if you're in a hybrid situation still, but you extend the day, you go from where we're at now to not enough time in the classroom, but extend it out, and then you have the students every other Friday, how much ground are we making up by doing that, ensuring that we're staying in a good situation versus jumping all in and things go south in a hurry? If we're in that hybrid, extending the day, things are going good, could we add another day in as we go along where we one day a week all the kids are together? I'm thinking outside of the box a little, but I'm just really nervous on the side of we're going to have the teachers, everybody change everything, and then we have a couple instances and everybody's back out the door again. What's our best way to service? Like everybody's saying, there's no right or wrong answer, but I just want to throw that out there.
I guess my response to that would be that if circumstances develop such that some decision like that is necessary, wouldn't it be more efficient for the people who are actually in the trenches to make that decision rather than us responding to various developments that occur? And from a vantage point that's not really very efficient. These are decisions that have to be made quickly, not at a bi-monthly board meeting. And we have given the decision makers, including staff, administration, the responsibility to adjust to these developments. And I've been pretty satisfied with the results of that. Personally, I'm not speaking for the board, obviously, but again, I think unless someone has a contradiction or some reason for not being satisfied with this recommendation, I don't see any need for action on our part. Kim?
Yeah, I guess I'm not clear how this is different than us with the administration coming and telling us when we switched, we pivoted from any of the learning models this year at all. This is just, they've been very open and upfront with us as we've moved through this pandemic about when we pivot from it. So I'm with you, Neil, in that I don't know how this is different than any of those times. So I don't know why an action item wouldn't be needed. This is what the people that are working on this is their recommendation, and that's what we've guided. We've directed as a board that they do that. We did that last September, and so I'm not sure how this is different than any of the other times we've had reports on the learning model.
I believe, planning on voting in favor of the proposal, but I actually would agree with Jill that I'd like to see the board vote. I think the community wants to see that and wants to feel represented. So for that reason, I would agree with Jill.
All right. I would entertain a motion then to, I suppose, either accept or contradict the recommendation of the management team.
I think you'd want to do a vote first to see how many want it as a motion, because basically the way it's stated, the board or the administration has worked and followed the guidelines. To just because two people or 3 people say they'd like to, you still don't have a majority that have said that. So you gotta walk cautiously on it.
Here's my recommendation. That the board vote on the proposal that I shared with you, but within the language that you voted on, allow the district administration the flexibility to adjust the model as necessary based upon the conditions within the community. Because if you're voting to go with this learning model tonight, that ties my hands and the rest of us. So that if the numbers go bad, then we're going to have another board meeting to change the numbers. So if you want to vote on it, that's what I would recommend you do.
That brings me back to my point. That's precisely what I'm saying, that you have that obligation already, that responsibility and that ability. I appreciate, Andrew, what you're saying, that this seems like it's an issue that the board should take the responsibility of taking action on it, but my action would be to bend in the direction of the advice that is given to us by the people who are making those management decisions. Dennis.
It makes sense if we're changing that motion from what it is here, that, back in August, we made that decision to give administration to do the hybrid model and all of those pieces and the direction to adjust things. We don't want to handcuff hands by having a motion here that,
right,
like you said, they're going to have to come back to us. So in that case, making a motion with adjustments and giving flexibility and giving everybody a voice on it probably isn't a bad decision to make.
But isn't that what we already have? As Kim pointed out, that's the arrangement that currently exists, and I've been very satisfied with that arrangement.
Thank you. I guess my question would be, and it's been a while since we had done that, did we vote? Was it an action item when we went to the hybrid? I know there was discussion there that as numbers dictated that we would back off of the hybrid as needed, but this is a little different situation where we are adding services, adding contact time, and I'm just curious, was it an action item back then? If it was an action item back then, I believe it should be now.
My recollection is that it was not. We acted on giving the management team the authority to make those decisions, and that decision was the hybrid model.
I think at one point the board did vote on an issue in December, or I don't know whether or not we were going to come back. Most adjustments the administration has just made internally. But I do believe there was one occasion where the board voted. If Ashley's trying to look that up right now, so we'll check on that.
Do any board members recall that? Okay, so what are the wishes of the board? Kim.
Jill has her hand up too, and so does Dave. So I was gonna make a motion, but maybe should we let them talk before, unless?
Jill.
I'm willing to make a motion as well, so Kim, you could go ahead with that if you like.
So I would move to support, based on Superintendent Funk's recommendation, that we accept the proposed learning model for today that was presented today, with the flexibility to move in and out of that learning model based on county numbers.
Has been moved to accept the recommendation. recommendation as proposed by Dr. Funk, and with the understanding that the management team would have the ability to make adjustments when necessary. Is that a fair statement of your motion, Kim?
Yeah.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second
Dave.
it, Gail.
Seconded by Dave. Any discussion? Dr. Funk?
On December 21st, the board, this is when the numbers were pretty high for COVID, directed to approve the recommendation of the learning model with elementary and students in person 4 days a week with virtual Fridays and secondary hybrid. So there was one time when you did vote on it in the middle of the year.
So the current motion would be consistent with that?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm fine with that. Any discussion of the motion made by Kim? Jill?
I just wanted to say that I know this has not been easy for the community, and I know the staff and administration has been working hard as well as the students, and so I appreciate all of the efforts everyone has put in. I know changes are not easy, and this will be another change for families, but I feel good knowing that the model that we had for most of the year was sustainable, other than when the governor had us distance learning, for a while. So, I know everybody's concerned with education, everybody's concerned with mental health, and the short class times now are not ideal for anyone. And so I think the closer we can get back to normal as soon as possible will benefit our students, and we just need to do that in as safe as manner as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill, and I totally agree with that. And I'd like to add to that and thank all of those people who emailed me and the rest of the board. We all received those emails, and I've spent a fair amount I've printed all of them out and have read them. Dave has appropriately responded to many of them. Dr. Funk has responded to some of them. And I'm really thankful that the public has presented us with their ideas on this. And I want the public to know that we really appreciate that. And we do pay attention to those emails. Dennis.
I really like the idea of the extended day. I think that is crucial. I'm just really edgy and nervous on the everyday comments I made before, listening to both sides. I mean, again, there's no right or wrong answer here, but my fear is we're still in a pandemic, and everything we've been doing has been going good. Have we had enough time for those secondary students? No. By going to extended day, yes. I'm struggling in my mind that we throw them back in 4 days a week. I agree with everything that's being done, all the research and the time, but there's so many hidden things in there, and we're not going to know till we cross them. And I'm just, you don't want to put the administration and staff and teachers through everything just to find out it's not going to work and then flip it back again. I'm edgy on it.
Jill?
Thank you. I just think it's important to note as well that Distance Learning Academy is still available to any families wishing to choose that option, whether they're currently in it and want to stay, or if they're in the other model and want to switch to that. That is continuing to be an option for families, or if they're not feeling comfortable enough to come back 4 days a week.
And that survey will be going out later this week, as we do every quarter.
That's a good point. Dennis?
Staffing as a whole, teachers, and I know the communications have been going on. We need to just understand that the pressure that's on those teachers and the paras and all the staffing and aides that are out there, they've been through quite a wild ride this year, and anything we can do to continue to support them and administration to make sure that they're feeling supported in what they're doing. We don't want any teachers or individuals left out on an island out there, because that could do more damage than good. So, we move forward, we just gotta make sure we're there for them.
Other comments, discussion? Hearing none, it has been moved and seconded that we support the recommendation handed to us today by Dr. Funk, with stipulation that any adjustments would be made by the management team. All those in favor?
Let's go roll call, because we have 3 on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Roll call. Bruce.
Aye.
Angie. Aye. Dennis.
With reservations, aye.
Thank you. Dave.
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
Kim.
Aye.
And the acting chair votes aye. Motion is approved. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, study session, credit recovery and summer programming, Johanna Thomas and Mary Jo Dorman.
Johanna is not able to be here tonight, and I just also wanted to publicly state that we're very proud of Johanna. She is the citizen of one of the co-citizen of the year for the Alberta Tribune, so we'll acknowledge her at a future meeting. But Mary Jo will cover her portion of it, and then we have Tammy Ellis, our Director of Special Services, who will talk about summer school with for our special needs kids.
All right, thank you. This is just an update, and again, Johanna put this together, and something came up last minute. So we will be doing summer programming in person, and the dates are going to be June 7th through July 1st, Monday through Thursday, much similar to prior years. And again, we call it targeted services. That's where the funds come, targeted funds. And it will be for 1st through 8th graders, and elementary will be at Hawthorne, and middle school students will be at the high school. And then the high school students have what's called credit recovery, where they're working on making up for missing classes, credits, etc. And Johanna listed the times there so you can see. And as always has in the past, it does include for all the students breakfast, lunch, and any that have transportation needs.
The other comment I want to make on this real quick is we know that there's been a lot of learning loss this year with our students. So we may, depending on our numbers, actually increase this to another elementary building as well, which I think would be a real positive for the district to really help with some of the deficits that the pandemic has created.
Yeah, and I see that, well, it is coming up on the slide here. Ashley, could you move a slide forward? Thank you. So just here's the credit recovery information. Again, students can do some of the work at home, on site, etc. We are also offering credit recovery starting now. Well, we have been offering credit recovery, but we're offering on-site credit recovery support for any student who is needing to make up credits. And we'll do that. You can see the hours listed there. Well, now we'll probably have to adjust a bit with Q4 change, so those hours will change a bit. But we'll also be doing it over spring break. So families were notified by school counselors, administrators, etc. if we had students missing credits needed for graduation, etc., underclassmen as well, or underclass students, that spring break will be a time for students to earn credits that they may have missed, to come in and get support for that. Johanna has posted the teaching positions for summer school, also for credit recovery. And Ashley, can you go to the next slide? The middle bullet there, we do have currently 18 teachers who have applied for the elementary targeted services, as well as she does have teachers applying currently for summer credit recovery and spring break. She also wanted to let you know that with elementary conferences last week, that the student referral forms, discussions, support for parents, both distance learning students who had conferences and virtual students who are in person during the week for classes, that talking about summer school and the importance. So that's where Mike said that right now we've slated one building. We'd love to see 2 buildings of summer school. So the referrals are coming in from teachers, talking to families, and getting their support. So we don't have numbers yet, as we've just started the process, but as we get updates on that, we will share with you. She's also been working with, the last bullet there, with Chris Chalmers to look for some experiential ed type opportunities this summer for kids to be outside and maybe taking some field trips around the community, et cetera. So it's going to be a pretty awesome experience, get kids back on site together, out and about, and some great learning. So that is the current update as we have it.
Okay, and the special ed is just an extension of the year for students. So the qualifications for a student to attend summer programming is a little bit different than the normal. So our dates are going to be the same as the targeted services. We can provide our extended school year to preschool through 12th grade. The times are listed there, Monday through Thursday. Students will be 8:30 to 11, staff are 7:30 to 11:30. We do have programs at Brookside because we have all of our early childhood programming here. And then Lakeview, we do leave the ASD and option classrooms there simply because they would be almost impossible to duplicate in another building, such as the timeout room. That's the only building that has our state registered timeout room. And then at the high school, we'll have students there as well. Breakfast, lunch, and transportation are all provided. So there's different ways a student on an IEP qualifies for extended school year, and it's all based on whether the student has regressed and how long it has taken that student to recoup those skills after a break. We also are looking at self-sufficiency, that's the first one, and that is due to students that might be struggling with functional skills such as eating, dressing, bathrooming, that type of thing. And then the last reason is due to a student's unique needs. Do we need to make sure that we're providing a free and appropriate education to that student? If, say, for example, we have a pretty significant delay due to autism or functional skills, then that's why we would look at having them do extended school year. Ashley?
Jill, you have your hands up.
I did, thank you. On back on credit recovery, I'm wondering how these services differ from prior years as far as the amount of support we are offering this year.
I can have, do you want to touch base? Do you want to talk about that, Mark? I see Mark walked out, but do you, I don't know if Jeff's into the plan. Yeah, go ahead.
A couple ways. We haven't offered credit recovery during spring break, but one of the things we looked at is we looked at the needs of the student needs. We looked at this as an opportunity of, you know, a lot of us aren't traveling this spring break due to pandemic, so it'd be a great time for students to, you know, finish any credits they may need. We especially targeted all seniors. So if any seniors right now are short credits to graduation, the focus was we need to call those parents again and make sure they understand the importance, and that if students are available during spring break, this is really important for them to come in, get the help, make up the credits needed. So it was really targeted by all of us, the administrators at the high school, the school counselors, looking at each student and determining who do we need to reach out to, and it was apparent that we need to offer this during spring break. So that's the first biggest thing that's different this year. The other thing is more hours of on-site teachers, because their credit recovery really is an online class where teachers support, but just offering more classes, getting students in, and being available, meeting those student needs.
The other thing I can tell you that Mark has done is he's met with a number of his teachers, and he's looked at students who are somewhere between 50 and 60% as far as they got an F, but they were fairly close to passing. And, okay, working with the teacher, working with the family and the student, are there any ways we can work together to recover this credit? That's a new approach that he has not done previously. So he really has worked closely with his teaching staff, the ALEA representatives, the leadership said we want to help these kids with credit recovery. So they've really stepped up to help out, and more so than I've seen historically. And so he's got his leadership team involved in it at the building level, and really proactively contacting families so that no surprises, and we can work on this together to get across the finish line.
So you mean 50 to 60% of a particular course
Correct.
kind of passing?
Yeah, for their grade, say they were at a 58. Okay, what was, what did you need? How did this end up? And so rather than throw the kid away, sorry you didn't pass, let's sit down and have that conversation and try to meet the needs of the student, because that's what we're about, which is a different approach.
And do we know if what we are offering over the summer and spring break is enough to meet the needs this year? There are just so many students, I think more than normal, who are failing in many classes. Are we offering enough support for them?
The short answer is no, but I can tell you this as well. This is a tough environment to be operating in. So a few weeks ago, I polled the principals and I said, I want you to go back to your staff and I want you to talk to teachers about targeted services and helping kids after school, helping kids during spring break, in particular at the elementary level, and see what we get. And I can tell you that they came back to me and they said, Mike, our teachers are just stressed out and this is not a good time for that. So that's why we're not offering targeted here fourth quarter or during spring break. So the answer to your question is we have been looking at it. As I stated earlier, our goal here at this point is to get us through the year, get as many kids on the credit recovery side as we can caught up, and then robust plans for summer, and then we'll have to take a look at what we do for next school year.
Do you think a lot of the credit recovery is related to homework assignments? Different parents or individuals I've seen, their comment as well, Johnny or Susie's at home and they're just not doing their homework. I've looked online and there's a lot of reds, which means homework. I don't know if that correlates at all, if we catch up with them and get them to do some of that homework assignment.
Yeah, I think that's a piece of it. Yeah, it is. And again, parents in this environment are stressed and they got what they're dealing with in their lives. And if kids aren't doing their work at home, the teacher's not right there to check up on them. So that's a struggle. The other thing that we're doing differently is there time during the school day to offer credit recovery time? A structured study hall where, okay, if you have a student who's deficient in math, credit-wise, can we align them for time to go work with a math teacher during the day? Have not done that historically, so that's another approach that we're taking to try to help kids in this environment.
Okay, continuing on. We have our teacher positions posted. So far, we've had 13 applicants, and para positions are posted. We've had actually 2 applicants so far. We had another one today. However, there's approximately 170 students that are eligible for programming in special ed for summer courses. The average number of students we've had attend each year is approximately 145. So my hope is we'll find enough staff to help. As Dr. Funk said, staff are tired, and I'm hoping they don't feel like they need to take the summer off. think that was it, right, Ashley? Any questions for me? Thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? Hearing none, we're adjourned.